Today, we are going to be talking about the book, Are You Still Holding That Key? Oh, wait, no, that's not the name of the book.
What?
That
Is it off
wasn't
of a
funny, was
movie
it?
or what is it?
No,
Is it off of a movie or something?
no, it was a shower thought. I was taking a shower and I was
Why?
like,
Why you were
what?
seeking stillness?
I was seeking stillness in the shower and I thought, are you still holding that key? No.
I don't know about that one, man. I don't know about that one. It's funny that the things that you get for like the shorts on YouTube and Instagram. Thank
hmm
God it doesn't come up with our beginnings, because if it was to like do the reels for the beginnings, people would be like scroll, scroll,
Off.
scroll. And it's funny. We're going to be talking about stillness today and how terrible social media is for you, but you know,
Stillness is the key. Let's
yeah,
talk about it.
I like it.
So,
So, but before you get started, we got to talk about our cigars. I have two cigars today,
two cigars, you're double fisting it.
just in case, man, because I think our conversation is going to be good today, and all the three viewers can see my brand new mic right here and my
You
new
spent how
mom.
much on?
Well, let's just say I had to get it checked with the wife first, and she said it was okay. It was that expensive, so
But your vocals are gonna sound so amazing.
yeah. When I gave it a test this morning, it was way different. Like
Yeah.
just clear. So, and I feel like I'm Joe Rogan right now. So,
Yeah. We almost look like twins because you can see our mics in the corner
hmm
and it looks like the same mic, which it is the same mic. It's a little bit different model. Yours is 3 years older. I bought mine
3 years
4 years ago. Yeah. So,
Okay.
but
Yeah, what you smoking today?
I am smoking one of my budget cigars. It is a
Okay.
Buena Vista Tobacco Factory. It's a cigar that I love smoking. It's not the best cigar. I
Mm,
would compare it to like your JC Newman Quorum.
okay.
I mean, I get them for $3 a piece, I
Right.
think.
Right.
Very good cigar. Tastes good. Like it doesn't taste cheap. It doesn't taste like a fancy $18 cigar,
hmm
but it's really good. And I love going, it's very smooth. So a lot of times with cheaper cigars, they're rough, and unless you let them sit in your humidor for a little while, like they taste raw. This one, it's always been very smooth. It's one of my go-to cigars. This, and have you ever heard of 601? 601 is another
No.
cigar that I smoke from time to time that I can find for a pretty good cost as well. Tastes very similar to a 601. That's just smooth. And I love it. It's well made. What are you smoking? Or what two cigars do you have?
Yeah, the JC Newman. I was gonna go to the cigar shop here in Germany at the mall, but it's like 45 minutes away, and we weren't up. It's north of Stuttgart, and we live in south of Stuttgart, and it takes about 45 minutes to get through the city. 45 minutes to an hour, and I just didn't have time to run up there and grab a couple of cigars. So these have been in my humidor for probably 4 months. They're a little bit dry because my humidor is at 60% right now.
That's a
But
little
the
low.
but the weather in Germany is always dry. Like there's no humidity here, so my cigars dry out. So I brought two just in case I burn through this one quickly, because last week we talked. I had a JC Newman, and I think I smoked it in like 25-30 minutes. So
Oh, wow.
I have two just in case I burn through this here in 30 minutes.
Are those your last two cigars?
I think I have two more of JC Newman, the Reds. I don't know what, it's just a quorum. And then they have a blue wrapper that I don't know the difference between. And I have maybe 5 or 6 of those. But since I only smoke once a week, I will probably buy a little bit more expensive cigars, just because, smoking an $8 cigar every day is different than smoking an 8 cigar once a week. So, or $12, like it just depends. But so we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
Can't you buy cigars locally, like on base?
Yeah, I can. They have like at the gas station they have a humidor, and they got good stuff, like they have Romeo and Julieta, they got Monte Cristo. I mean, they got some good cigars there. And I got these on base. But if I'm smoking every day, I will get the cheaper one, but I don't smoke every day. So, and sometimes too, because I'm a teacher, I don't go in there and buy tobacco products, because just in case there's a student in there.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with smoking cigars, but If I see if there's a little third or fourth grader in there and they see me buying cigars, I don't want them to be.
Yeah.
It's just the
Yeah.
image of, not that the image of smoking cigars is bad, but in my opinion, cigarettes is wrong, right? What
Right.
what
Right.
do I
Right.
smoke cigarettes? So I don't want to give off that confusion to a student.
Yeah.
So that's really the main reason why I don't buy cigars on base. If I do, it'd be like on a Saturday or Sunday, like in the morning after I lift. I'll run over to
Yeah.
the gas station and buy a cigar. So
You also buy cigars in Tenerife, right?
yeah, actually, we're going to be going there this summer, probably for 10, 11 days. And they have
Oh, I'm coming.
a guy who hand rolls cigars who lives up in the northern part of Tenerife, and I will go up and get some of them from him. And then they have like their the cigars that they roll as far as like a company. It's not like a one man shop, but it's like a
It's
company.
like a cigar factory.
They do, yes, and they produce
Oh, that's cool.
their own brand. I can't remember what the name of that brand is off the top of my head, but when I go back, for sure, those are my absolute favorite cigars. So I will get a couple of boxes of those. You just got a couple of boxes, right?
I just got one box.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that 2 weeks ago. I smoked, I think, 3 of them. That was the A.G. Fernandez collaboration with Romeo y Julieta. No, no,
Oh,
no.
yes, right. Okay.
Monte Cristo. It was his collaboration with Monte Cristo. One of my favorite cigars. $8 cigar. Very good. That's my absolute favorite. I wouldn't call it a budget cigar because budget cigar to me is like $4, but that's
Right.
my absolute favorite
Medium.
medium budget cigar, I
Okay.
guess. Like
Right,
it's
right.
really good. In fact, if I have the choice of that $8 cigar, AJ Fernandez collaboration with Monte Cristo, if I have a choice between that and almost any $25 or $30 cigar, I'm going with $8 cigar just because
Yeah.
it tastes so good in comparison. Now, granted, there are some cigars that are $30 that I would rather have over it. The
Right.
Padron 1964 Anniversary Edition, for example. But in most cases, it's still, man, it's freaking good, you know?
Talk to me about your shirt.
Oh, I wore this in honor of my son.
Right.
Have you never seen this before?
No, no, I have not.
Oh, what does it say?
Live long and prosper, Dad.
Big word. Dad.
I like that.
Right. Eli's at the age to where he's still not embarrassed if I wear this or
Gotcha.
something like this.
Yeah, I'm
But he has a
embarrassed for
game
you just
today
looking at it.
at 11. You're too cool to wear stuff like this.
I
I'm
just
just a
never.
big fat nerd.
You're not. No, but
Uh-huh.
I don't like wearing stuff like that. I just never have. I don't know why.
Because you're too cool.
Not because I'm too
You're
cool, but maybe I'm not cool enough. That's the reason why.
you're you're full of stillness.
I'm ready to unpack this book, man. This was great. Like
So, was there any interesting facts in the beginning? I wrote down some interesting facts, but
everything,
did you notice anything
everything.
interesting about the book?
Yeah, yeah. The introduction, I wrote down the quote by Blaise Pascal. He said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." And I remember, not necessarily a room alone, but when I started with my trainer, Aaron Chappell, he's like, "Hey, every other day or the day on your recovery days, you're going to go for a walk, and you're going to walk for 30 minutes, and you're going to wear a weighted vest." And I remember going for like the first 2 weeks. I hated it because I would walk for 30 minutes. I'm not a walker, not a runner. And it was so boring just to go out and walk. And, over the course of the months, I started now to where I crave going for a walk. And I think it was because it's my inability to sit alone with myself in my thoughts as I would walk. And when I saw the benefits for the walk, not just for recovery with the extra blood flow, but through just the ability to deeply think and think deeper, now if I want to think about something, I will go for a walk. And so I think that was probably the opening quote. I also wrote down, we don't seek stillness so that we can withdraw from the world. We seek stillness so that we can behave better while we're active in the world. Because I think a lot of people think stillness is all about the Tibetan monks as they meditate, they sit down in this like Zen pose. But that's not necessarily what stillness is. To me, and hopefully we can unpack it a little bit more, but stillness is a state of mind to where you don't care what other people think. You know that you are enough. You don't feel rushed. You're seeking the best version of yourself. So to me, that's what stillness is. And walking and not being on your phone. I think that might be the number one thing that can give you that feeling of stillness, of enoughness, of satisfaction. So, off the top of my head, that's kind of like what the first, I guess, introduction part of the book gave to me.
Yeah, and he breaks the book down into three sections: mind, spirit, and body. But did you know that this is actually Ryan Holiday's ninth book that he's written? Stillness is the Key?
Okay, I did not know that. I mean, I thought it might have been his fifth, but it was his ninth.
That's what I thought. So I thought it was his fifth, but then I looked it up last night. He had already written two books on marketing
Okay,
before he wrote any books on Stoicism.
right,
And then, of course, he wrote The Obstacles Way, Ego is the Enemy. And then he wrote The Daily Stoic. And then there were several other books that were listed in between there. This is his ninth book. So you can really tell at this point that he's starting to dial in his ability to write,
right.
because one thing that I loved about this book more than the others were the examples.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a Bible college where the most interesting preachers, we were both raised extremely religious, but the most interesting preachers were those who knew how to tell stories and then relate it to a biblical concept.
Right.
And that's essentially what Ryan Holiday does in this book. He has so many stories in this book and then relates it to a key stillness concept, which I absolutely loved.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the ninth book in a series, and it's estimated that he's already sold over 1 million copies of all of his books. So, but this is actually the third book in his initial Stoic trilogy. And then, of course, after this, he wrote the four virtues?
Yeah, for
The
virtue.
four characters, the four virtues, which we already discussed. Wisdom takes work.
Right.
But said wisdom is the key. Wisdom is not the key. But some mind quotes that I got, because he broke it down into three separate sections, is the first one that I got was: the less energy we waste regretting the past or worrying about the future, the more energy we have for what's in front of us, which to me is key in stillness. And oftentimes, I know that I used to do this a lot more, where I would look back at some event that happened in the past and I would feel so embarrassed by it. I remember specifically when I was like 10 years old or 11 years old, our dad would have me get in front of people and sing.
I was there with you, man. I was there with you. That was the worst. I don't want people to know about this one, but go ahead.
Well, so I had to sing by myself one time
Okay.
in front of Christian School Chapel. And I went up there, and before this is so embarrassing. So before I got up to sing, Melinda, our sister, of course, went and played the piano for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if it was me or whatever. We had copied off the songs. I think it was
Right.
Majesty Music or something like that. We had copied off the songs, and then I had taken the top copy, or somebody had taken the top copy and put it on top, like the first page.
Okay.
So I'm singing this song, "Oh, rejoice in the Lord," or something. And I turn the first page, and it's not the second page of the music. It's like page 6. And I'm like trying to sing from memory, and I'm sitting there in front of like 50 people trying to sing this song before the speaker comes up.
Yeah.
I'm like, and then I was like, it's all messed up. And I like pointed at
You said
because I said that. I said it's all messed up.
Oh, that's
like
funny.
the papers were out of order, so
Yeah.
I didn't know the words.
Right.
And I just kind of stood there. And then eventually Melinda heard that I wasn't singing, so she like went,
Mary had a little lamb, little lamb.
and then I'm just standing there and everybody's looking at me. And then there was like this slow clap. You know how after songs people would clap for you?
Yeah.
And it was like,
It's the awkward.
and I just like put my head down and I walked back to my seat. So that specific memory and others like it, oftentimes in the past would hit me, and I'd be like, oh my gosh,
Right.
so embarrassed by this thing. And especially reading this book, and in the past, I figured out nobody remembers that except for me.
No.
I doubt even our sister remembers. She might if I mentioned it to her.
Okay.
if I said, "Hey, do you remember when this happened in Marble Hill?" She might be like, "Oh, well, maybe. Like, I think I remember that happened."
Yeah.
But I'm the only one who remembered anything about that. Now, granted, if we do something absolutely crazy, like we blow up in front of people, sure, there's some extremes where people are just going to remember how much of a butt you were,
Right.
if you were ever a butt.
Right.
But in general, if you did do something embarrassing, or you did something embarrassing, or you did something that you just think that everybody's thinking about it all the time, the reality is, don't worry about it, because nobody remembers that event. And if somebody does remember that event, it's like a blip, because they didn't have any involvement with it. So those people that were sitting in the crowd, they were not the ones embarrassed. I was the one embarrassed. So therefore, it did not leave the imprint on their brain.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore,
Right.
nobody thinks about that event except for me.
Right.
Same thing with future events. Like, I can be worried about this, that, and the other. And granted, I need to make the right decisions to save for retirement, to make good decisions for our future, to not buy a new car if I can't afford the car, like all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, tomorrow will take care of itself.
Right.
In fact, later in the book, he talks about Jesus who talks to his disciples, and he says something like, "Worry not about tomorrow, because tomorrow will take care of itself."
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing. For stillness, I just have to remember to be in the moment.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what chapter that was in, but I'm sorry that happened to you. I remember a lot
Are
of
you?
those things, and I
We used to do it together.
don't.
We used to have
talk
to
about
stand
it.
up there and do it
We
together.
can talk about
You're,
anything else but this.
because you're embarrassed about the past.
No,
You
no,
want to
no.
live in the moment and experience stillness.
No. The thing is, though, like, I can't imagine ever forcing my son to do that, because it's all about. It wasn't about the kids, you know what I mean? But we will stop there.
You're
So,
so Dada used to love it, and shout out to Dada. Our grandpa passed away. Was it 3 weeks ago now?
February
4
1st.
weeks ago?
So, yeah, 4 weeks ago. Yeah.
And it was expected. I mean, he was 94 years old, but shout out to him. But he loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we would go to his church and we would get up there and sing. And just a last thing about that, I used to practice my piano so hard. I would practice specific songs so that we wouldn't have to get up there to sing, because we had to do one or the other.
Right.
It had to be we would sing or I would play a piece on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And I hated singing in front of everybody so much that I would practice so hard to learn a new piece on the piano, so I could be like, "How about I play the piano this week
Thank
instead
you,
of
Brian.
getting up in front of everybody?" And
Thank you. So speaking
it's because I love you.
Speaking about Dada, you remember what news source he used to watch all the time?
CNN.
Yes. So you remember in not Ryan Holiday, but in the book, the chapter under limit your inputs, he talks about the CNN effect of the 1990s,
Yep.
where that was like the first decade, I guess, where news came at you
Nonstop.
Yeah, nonstop. Like, it was constantly on. There's constantly updates. There's constantly, it's just in your face. And he talked about that being a phenomena with, I guess, that generation. And like our grandfather was always glued to CNN.
Always,
it's funny
yeah.
because Katie's dad called CNN the Communist News Network. So, and whether you're like right leaning or left leaning, that's funny. Like it's funny. So
it's funny that people would respond to it that way. You know.
And so anyway, so when I was journaling through this chapter, limit your inputs, I wrote down next to the CNN effect, the social media effect 2020. Because you see, especially with the war in Iran right now, just so much, I don't know, like fake news. Like, like you're scrolling Instagram and you see the United States has run out of defense missiles and will be invaded by someone in the near future. Like, just stuff like this, just nonsense. But we give so much attention to not only the news, but to how other people are living on social media. And the whole point of social media is to
connect to other people.
Well, that's the purpose of it. That was the purpose of Mark Zuckerberg, or whatever his name is, came up with Facebook. Was so that
Zuckerberg. That's a great restaurant name.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg.
Anyway, fries are free. But it's like he came up with Facebook so people could connect, but now it's been tainted and to me it's been demonized, and
Skewed.
people want to appear like they are happy through social media. So social media makes everybody post their ideal self, not their real self. And so you're sitting back looking at, oh man, Brian's in France over Christmas. Man, really got it made because he's at Disneyland Paris, and so we
Mm-hmm.
start being unhappy with our life because of the social media effect, kind of similar to the CNN effect when we were kids. Um, but also, like I put here, like brain rot is real, and the reason why I say that is because we're all trying to seek this stillness the last 2 weeks, and I'm not a big social media guy, but it was Friday night. So Katie was sleeping down in the guest bedroom because Soren was down there, and so I'm up in our room, and it was 8:53 or 8:54, and I literally scrolled Instagram till 9:31 for over 30 minutes. And
Yep.
what am I doing? Like I just wrote in my journals about like limiting garbage in so that garbage won't come out, and I'm here scrolling my phone, and it was just I was kind of disappointed in myself, but um
It's the easy way out.
yeah,
Like it's the easy response. It's so addicting,
right. The dopamine hit. He talks a little bit about the dopamine, but that dopamine hit, it's like you scroll through one video and you're like, yeah, I should really get off now. And then you scroll to the next video and you're like, oh, and then it excites your attention. And so
The algorithm,
you keep scrolling. And
right?
I just feel that if we could imagine what I could have done in that 30 minutes. I had my book set on the side of the nightstand. I could have read for 30 minutes and be thoroughly relaxed, probably would have fell asleep reading, but I didn't because I was scrolling social media. Now, to put a Stoic twist on this, because we're reading Ryan Holiday, Marcus Aurelius in Meditations, he wrote this quote where he says, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? And a long time ago, this is probably 7 or 8 years ago, so I guess not that long ago, I had made the choice to stop listening to music and start listening to podcasts. And then obviously like reading a book is better than scrolling social media, maybe even reading a book over watching TV. But this whole like concept of social media has really, I think, tainted what we can accomplish in life and how we can be creative because we're just wasting that time on social media. So, I mean, that's kind of the one thing that I'm working on right now is trying to, in order to find that stillness, is to get off my phone. And in fact, I had wrote down on one of the topics of the entries that I wrote down, I wrote down, yeah, stillness, reach for this instead of our phones. But we're just not comfortable. Like the opening quote by Blaise Pascal is like, we're just not comfortable with being by ourselves alone and our own thoughts. We always have to reach into our pocket and grab our phone. So something I'm working on and something that this book kind of highlighted for me to continually be aware that I just got to put my phone in another room so it doesn't cause me to want to check it.
Yeah, and in this entire first section, Holiday emphasizes quiet space, journaling, deep thought, and confidence through quietness.
Right.
And journaling, for example, is something that I don't like doing. Like I've tried, and we've talked about in past episodes where, oh yeah, I need to journal. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I understand the benefit of it, but to me it almost feels like a waste because the way that my brain works is I think about something over and over and over again. So by the time that I put it on paper, I've already thought about it 52,384 times already. And I'm like, well, what does writing it out one more time benefit me in any way? So I don't know. We've also talked about book ideas. I mean, I just threw a book idea at you
Last week.
week ago.
Yeah.
When
I really
we talked.
like that idea, to be honest with you.
So in order to, like, I can't think a book. I'm gonna have to write a book, right? So I'm gonna have to write. It's just not something that I really enjoy doing, but I do enjoy thinking.
Right.
And I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but one of my favorite acts of stillness, especially he talks about the body portion of the book, is sitting outside, doing nothing, listening to the birds, and smoking a cigar.
Right.
I mean, I feel such stillness whenever that happens. And it's not, people talk about how tobacco is addicting. I just went, I don't know, 4 months without smoking at all. Any tobacco. Like I never smoked cigarettes.
Right.
Never had chewing tobacco. I've never vaped, nothing like that. I've only smoked cigars
Right.
at all, ever in my life. And just a feeling of sitting there, and granted, I could just sit there, right? I could sit on my back deck and I could listen to the sounds of nature, which he talks a lot about in this book,
Mm-hmm.
going for a walk, like enjoying the surroundings. But there's something about, just like our conversations, sitting there looking at the world around me and taking a puff on the cigar,
Right.
seeing the smoke, and then that smoke, the unexactness of it.
Right.
Like it's unpredictable where it's going to go or what it's going to do. That's so interesting to me. Maybe I'm weird,
No.
but like I puff out the smoke and then a slight breeze comes through and then it goes to the right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I take another puff and I blow out the smoke and it goes directly up.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it's about to come to the ceiling, it kind of dissipates
Mm-hmm.
and it spreads out over the top of me. Like just that is stillness for me, and I absolutely love it. But you're someone who journals a lot.
Yeah, I do.
How did you respond to that section?
This is why this book was so like deep for me, because I mean, there's so many quotes. I mean, people don't want to hear quotes, but
I think people do. Do you have any that you want to
I
read
have
on
a
that?
ton of them. Like I haven't written here, but I'm trying to limit my ums and my likes, as we talked about over the weekend. No, Thomas Carlyle said, "Thought will not work except in silence." Herman Melville said, "All profound things is preceded and attended by silence." And Ryan Holiday gave an example in the book how all these major senior executives of major corporations, they recharged with one specific thing. And they did it by smoking cigars, sailing, going on long bicycle rides, fishing. But all of those things have one theme in common, and that's the absence of voices. Because when you're on your back deck, it's just you. In your thoughts, you are smoking your cigar, you're watching the smoke dissipate. You've probably had your most profound moments of deep thinking on your deck. That's like your space. For me, it's walking. I have a certain path behind our house that I love to walk, but that's the walk that I know if I go on, and then it's not that I get to deep thought the moment I step out of the house. It's when I'm walking for 10 minutes, I take a right down this path that takes me to the fields because we live on the outskirts of the city. And the moment I lose sight of all the houses that I live around, that's when those deep thoughts come to me. And it's the absence of voices. We have voices can't only be human voices. They could be the voice from your phone. They could be the voice of the TV. And that quiet is so rare is a sign of its value. And I don't think we value that silence. We don't value that ability to think. One, because it's never been modeled for us. And two, I don't know if we've actually given thought to how powerful thinking actually is.
It's something that was more common back in the old days, before the days of CNN,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously before the days of social media.
Right.
Like now, it's so uncommon to see somebody just sitting there
Right.
thinking, and we value the activity that social media brings to our brains, and our brains have to be active all the time, but taking that moment to just sit and think. And I'm curious, whenever you do your walks and you have these thoughts and you really enjoy it, or when I'm on my back deck, I don't really write. Do you take a notebook with you? Because I know examples that were given in the book. Some people, I think it was Leonardo da Vinci, would go on long walks and would take a sketchbook or a notebook and a pencil with him and would write down stuff as he walked. Like, do you take something with you, or do you write stuff down whenever you get back after you kind of formulate your thoughts while you're on the walk? And also, another example, I think it was William Wordsworth
Mm-hmm.
Longfellow. Maybe I'm remembering the wrong
No, that's
poet,
right.
but he would go for long walks for hours at a time and would write poems in his head while he was walking. and he would repeat the lines in his head over and over again because he knew he's going to be walking for 3-4 hours. He's not going to have a chance to get back to write it down until he got back home. So I'm curious, which avenue are you pursuing?
Um, I have my phone with me, unfortunately, so I can pull out my phone and I can take notes. But walking,
Do you put it on airplane mode?
no, I don't. That's a good idea. But for me, walking is not just the act of walking. Like my trainer has me walk for recovery. And it's funny because when the weeks that I walk the most, that's when I get back into the weight room and I have my best lifts just because of the blood flow that goes to the muscles and I'm able to it's a recovery for he tells me it's a way to recover. So it's just not the act of walking that is like a physical thing, but Duke University put out, was it Duke University or I think it was like maybe it was North Arizona or some university put out a study that when every step that you take literally pumps blood to the brain. And so
Mm-hmm.
Soren Kierkegaard, who is a Danish philosopher, he said, "Every day I walk myself into a state of being, and I walk away from illness." So what I interpret that was he, if you are not doing well mentally, or you have a breakthrough that you want to write about, or you have a relationship problem, those problems and ideas are best they'll best come to you on a walk. And when you are walking, you're literally walking to brain power and you're walking to a better state of mind. So I tell Aaron every time I walk and I don't feel like walking, I'll write in our chat, it's like, man, I didn't really feel like walking today, but I decided to do it anyway. And I feel a ton better because I went walking for 30 minutes. And he always responds back, yeah, yeah. Anytime you go for a walk, and if you don't want to, like you're always going to come back feeling 100% better. And so for me, that walk has become a source of not just meditation, but when I want to write about something, I will think about what I want to write about, and ideas will come
Mm.
to me. And it's funny because in September, Ryan Holiday also talks about, and I don't know if it's in this book, but he talks about you can have your own set way that you walk, but take a detour and go down another path. And the newness and the unfamiliarity of that path can actually spur different thoughts. So I took it
Mm.
in September, I took a different path that was actually through the woods. And this is when the idea of writing a book came to me. And I walked and plotted out the plot in my head as I was walking, and I got back to the house and I wrote it all down. But that was because I was walking, and I think that was the reason why I came up with that idea. Um, there is a author I like to read from. His name is Mark Batterson. He is talking about religion and all that, which I'm not a big subscriber to, but he's a pastor for National Community Church in Washington D.C. And when he walks, he meditates on getting God ideas, not just good ideas. So
Mm.
his thing is that if he walks and he meditates, or in his case prays, I won't pray, but I'll meditate, that he'll get
Mm-hmm.
even better ideas than if he's just sitting around in his office and comes up with just a good idea. So to me, that's what walking has become. And now that I've experienced that state of, I guess, meditation or enlightenment, if you want to call it that, now when I go out for a walk, I kind of expect that to happen every single time I go for a walk. What about you when you're rucking? Has that been something similar that you have experienced?
Yes, but admittedly, whenever I ruck, which I haven't done as much of recently because we had this discussion, got back into
Mm.
CrossFit. So I've kind of replaced my rucking time with actual workouts. I joined this online CrossFit gym called CrossFit Lynchpin, and he does workouts every day. And like I have been motivated to get back into it. So I've been doing that. But admittedly, whenever I do ruck or whenever I do walk, I listen to podcasts.
That's not
You
wrong.
know, I
Yeah.
put my
Yeah.
headphones in my ear, but I should walk with. I think that's part of the difference between us, though. Is like
You smoke on the back deck,
you.
and that's where you get your stillness. And there's different things that I do that get my stillness because we're all not created equal in that way.
Right, but also, like, you're so good at writing. Like, you just have this innate ability to put your thoughts on paper. And I can write, but I wouldn't necessarily consider my writing super interesting or great, you know? And maybe that's my own thoughts that are in my head. But you mentioned, like, religion seems to have poked its head up. In the second section, like, first he talks about mind, spirit, and body. In the second section, in spirit, he talks about and writes a whole chapter on accept the fact that there is a higher
Yeah, that's
power.
right.
And he even says in the book, the higher power doesn't necessarily mean that you have to believe in God. But one of the things that I have done a lot of is, as an interpreter, I've interpreted for hundreds, literally hundreds of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And I have seen people who either A, accept the fact that there's something bigger out there than them that can help heal them from this malady of alcoholism. And I've seen them accept that fact, and I've seen them change. And I've seen people who are old timers in the group, they've been there for 20 years, and they're not religious at all, but they admit that there's something bigger than themselves that helps them through this pain. And there have even been studies that have been done, people who have faith, and they don't specify what religion or in what you have faith. People who have belief and faith heal faster when they're in the hospital because they believe in something that is bigger than themselves. Now, granted, if that's God, he says in there that Stoicists believe that that's the one true path in life. Something is bigger than us. And he even admits, let's say that you are an atheist and you are, or an agnostic. I think that atheism, just as people who are atheists have issues with religious people, I think there are just as many issues with atheism because you can't prove atheism. Like, granted, you can't prove a negative on either side, but that's a whole nother discussion. But the ability to admit, hey, there's something out there bigger, even if I'm an agnostic or I'm an atheist, and the complexity of the world around me, and the fact that we don't know, like, there's so freaking much out there. We don't know how it got there.
Right.
And we resort to a simple explanation that the entire universe used to be something that was the size of a marble, and then it exploded into the universe. Like, even that, what put the marble there? Like, there's something bigger out there than
Right.
us, and being able to admit that is massive. I mean, that's which you've discussed, the ability to say, I can grow and I can be a better person because I believe that there's a higher power out there. And you know me, like, I've gone through this journey where we grew up extremely religious, and he even talks about it in the book, and I marked it, where it doesn't matter who you are, you can believe in a higher power.
Right.
Whether your higher power is God, whether your higher power is the universe, whether your power is the one way, or I thought of the book The Secret, which is a book that was written 15, 20 years ago that talks about if you believe in something, then it can come true. If you believe in it enough, the powers of the universe can bring it to you. But he says, no matter what your religion is, you can believe in a higher power, but fundamentalism is different. Where fundamentalism is the belief that my God is the only one, and anybody else who doesn't believe in my narrow, strict interpretation of some religious scripture, if you don't believe in my narrow set of rules and requirements, then you're going to hell and you're going to be damned for the rest of your life. He said, I'm not talking about that.
Right.
I'm talking about the generic ability to believe in something that's bigger than yourself, so that I'm not focused inward on my own selfishness and the fact that I am God. Because if I believe that there is no higher God, then essentially it comes down to, well, I am God, if that's the case. Like, I'm in control of my own universe. I'm in control of my own destiny. I'm the one who determines my path in life, so therefore I'm going to be as selfish as possible. Granted, you don't have to be as selfish as possible in making those decisions, but that's the end goal. Like, that's the end result, is if there's not something bigger than me that can help me grow, well, then I'm reliant all on myself to do that.
Well, because the reason why I think religion can be powerful is because human nature is flawed, and he talks about how the dangers of desire, the danger of
Yep.
the whole Tiger Woods story about being enough and satisfaction.
That was so
It,
detailed.
it
I love that
it's
story.
scary because we're all Tiger Woods in one way or another. Like
100%.
we're all like that. And he brought in a lot of like Buddhist type philosophy into this. So Thich Nhat Hanh said, on the surface of the ocean there is stillness, but underneath there are currents. And so I wrote this phrase down in my journal, and I just wrote the question, what disrupts stillness? And I think the reason why religion can be helpful is because it gives you, let's just use Christianity as an example, it gives you a playbook on how to deal with the undercurrents of our human nature, because we're flawed, and we're
Right.
flawed by design, and we all have these inner demons. And I think I talked to you specifically about, I call like my demons, or I call what I struggle with, which I write down, my pride and my desire of, like, my desires of the flesh. Those are my demons, and I think that's demons for everybody. But in order to reach stillness, we have to figure out like which demon, or which are we going to feed, the demons in our life, or are we going to feed the stillness? And I think when the reason why religion can be so powerful, because it gives you a playbook for that. And Stoicism also can give you a playbook on how to have the right reactions, how to deal with other people, how to even deal with yourself. And so when I tried to answer that question, what disrupts stillness, it was, what's going to rule, the demons, or is stillness going to rule? Which for me, stillness would be having peace of mind, having a good moral compass, being thankful for what I have, having gratitude. And then I also wrote down, will I live according to a higher power? So it's interesting that you said that, because to me, I think if we can subscribe to that higher power, then that will give us, no matter what that higher power is, that will give us some stillness.
Yeah. And I have grown from the fact to where I got to a point in my life to where I hated
Hmm.
religion in general.
Are you
And a
are you
lot of
making a
it,
swing to like
kind
experiment
of.
more with
So,
it,
so
or
yes.
okay?
Yeah. So I got to the point to where, just because of experiences that I'd had and the hatefulness of people who ascribe to
Mm-hmm.
religion, like I turned away from
Mm,
it like
right.
completely. And this is revealing a little more about myself than I'm not sure I'm comfortable revealing, but I was at a point to where I just hated
Okay.
religion in
Right.
general. Absolutely hated it. But about a year ago, I started interpreting for this church service, and I, of course, graduated from Bible college. I have my master's degree in biblical studies. So I know a lot about the Bible. So because I know a lot about a certain topic, I'm pretty good at interpreting for that topic. It's no different than if I got a degree in engineering and then there's a job that requires somebody to interpret engineering terms, and like that person, obviously if they have a degree in engineering, they're going to be able to do that job really
Right.
well because they already have the back knowledge required to do that. So I started interpreting for a church, and there's all the normal complaints that I have with religion. Is it fake? Are they just trying to get your money? Like all of this
Mm,
stuff. Is the person who is leading the congregation, are they any better of a person than I am? Yet they're holding themselves up to this high standard, and we should look up to him. And in a lot of religions, in fact, the even like this is almost hard to say, but like the college that I graduated from, the leader of that college, like he almost asked us to worship him. Like he was the all inspiring person that we were to look up to, who was the great, oh, great one. Like, and I turned away from that
mm-hmm.
model. But when I started interpreting for this church, I saw the benefit that the church had on this small group of deaf people
Mm,
who were attending
wow.
it. Like they had a sense of
Mm-hmm.
community. They had a sense of purpose. They had this feeling like if I go through a problem, and these families that I'm working with, they had problems. Like one of them had a child who had to be taken to Jude Hospital because they were going through this sickness and this pain, and I saw this community come around them. And granted, they prayed over them and they supported them. They organized a meal train, which for people who don't know what that is, that's like just a schedule of meals so that the family could focus on being together. And this family felt
Mm.
loved, like they felt supported. And I don't know that there are a lot of organizations or organized groups. And again, whether it's real or not isn't the question. The question is, does the person who needs that love and support during a difficult time in their life, do they feel like they are loved and supported? And again, it's not about whether the church is trying to steal our money or whether the person who's the pastor is worthy of being the pastor. Like none of
Hmm.
that. I saw the benefit of the people who actually attended the church, who felt loved, and because of their belief, they were better people. And I saw how that group of individuals were able to be more influential and more helpful on the
Hmm.
world than if they had not attended the church. We go back to motivation a lot of times and how it's difficult to be motivated to read, for
Hmm.
example. Like I would not have finished this book. Case in point, I had not done the outline. I had not gone back through the book last night, and I knew that I needed
Right.
to because we're doing this podcast today. And man, I really wanted to watch a movie last night.
Yeah.
I did, and I had the thought, I was like, man, I don't want to sit down and go back through this book again. I just want to watch a freaking
Right.
movie. But the motivation was, you know what? You're going to talk to Brent about this today. Like, you got to sit down, you got to go through the book. And like, I wrote down a ton of
Hmm.
comments and it reminded me a lot of stuff. If I didn't have this podcast to push me or this time with you to push me to do that, I would not have done that. And I think it's the same thing with church and religion, being in a church or a congregation or a group of believers. And again, I don't think it
Right.
matters like what it is, it motivates you to do better things. And whether that's selfish motivation or not, or whatever it might be, having that group of individuals all in one place who feel supported, who feel loved, who feel part of something bigger, who believe in that higher power, I think is massively beneficial. As the studies have suggested, if you're in the hospital, if you're a believer in a God, you will in fact heal faster than somebody who is not a
Hmm.
believer. And the benefits of that are massive. I think that's the same thing that comes down to stillness, like the motivation to do so, like all of that. I think that believing in a higher power is so important. But
So, let's go back to Tiger Woods. What was your initial, I mean, when we talk about like sex, money, fame, power, I think as men,
yep.
it was like that was a chapter that spoke the most to me, I think. Just because of we all struggle with wanting to feel that we are accomplished and that we
And these are the results of that
right.
accomplishment.
So the name of that chapter was enough. So when I wrote down when I was journaling through this one, I wrote down, could satisfaction be the greatest byproduct of stillness? If we
Mm.
can sit down and think through what contentment, what is contentment? Because obviously Tiger Woods wasn't content with, I guess, his marriage. Talked about how even winning the most amount of masters at a certain age or the most majors at a certain age just wasn't fulfilling for him. So when we think about stillness and when we think about being enough, could, I guess, are we satisfied with the life that we have? And I wrote down contentment is stillness. And contentment can be, going back to the whole social media example, how comparison is the thief of all joy. I think that might be
Mm-hmm.
that the biggest danger with social media is we're always comparing our lives to other people. Again, going back to some of the Buddhist quotes that he pulled from, Lao Tzu said the greatest misfortune is not to know contentment. And when I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, I always associated my happiness with what I achieved or what I accomplished. And now I would say that my happiness is associated with just being satisfied with my life, the way it is, and what I've not necessarily built, but I've come to the crossroads in life to where I'm satisfied with being a PE teacher, coming home every day to my family, and that's enough. And the examples with Tiger Woods, he just was never satisfied. He had never had enough, even though he had accomplished so much more. And I realized that even accomplishments aren't going to satisfy. So, what would you say would be the greatest byproduct of you sitting on your porch, smoking a cigar, and having stillness on your porch? What is the biggest byproduct for you?
So this is the spirit section, and I wrote down several quotes. One of them, again, comes from the Bible. Ryan Holiday seems to take from all
In this book,
religious
in this book, he
texts
did. Yeah, in this
equally.
book he did. I felt like
He focused a lot on biblical passages in this book, and one of the passages that he quoted was from Jesus, and it says, "For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul?" Which was exactly what happened to Tiger
mm-hmm.
Woods. Somebody who had everything didn't realize that true happiness comes from what's prescribed in the Bible, which is having someone that you love, having children that you love, being devoted and faithful to them. If you are married, abiding by that promise and breaking that promise is the way that we lose our souls. We crack our souls by not following not necessarily only what the Bible tells us, but what other religious texts also
Mm-hmm.
say. Loyalty to our spouses, loyalty to our kids, consideration for our children and their future, working hard so that our family can be successful, not in order to achieve something or to gain riches, but so that we can be a loving family who doesn't have to worry about the needs in life. I also wrote, a virtuous life is worthwhile for its own sake. So even if I can't think of the benefits of being faithful to my spouse, the fact that I'm being faithful to my spouse is worthwhile on its own. I wrote down the beware desire, which you've already
Right.
discussed. You will never feel okay by way of external accomplishments. Enough comes from the inside. And so the way that I think of it, coming back to your question, when I'm sitting on my back deck, is I think about what is happiness. And I remember when I was younger, I used to think, and part of this was because I was raised sheltered, but I used to think, oh man, like going out and partying and having multiple partners and drinking and these things used to be presented from the pulpit as like, this is an awful lifestyle, this is the devil's playground. And I always thought, but these, like, it looks like these people are having so much fun. And I think for me, logically, if it had not been presented as
Right.
taboo, but if it had been presented as, sure, you can do these things, but will you be happy? Will you be joyful? Like, that's the big enough question. Don't take my word for it. Experience it for yourself and see how empty it is. So for me, I will sit down and look at my life and think, even at the age of 42, if I wanted to, I could start up a Tinder
Mm-hmm.
account and I
Is that
could
still a
meet up
thing?
with people.
Is
And there
Tinder
was,
still a thing?
I
Okay.
guess it is. I don't know. I haven't done it in 10 years. But there was a website that exposed a bunch of married men in the
Mm,
past, Ashley Madison, where these men are looking for these secret
right.
encounters, and I could go to strip clubs. I could, do all these things which are super exciting in the moment, but they're not virtuous, and all of those activities are going to be empty. So if I look at stillness and satisfaction and happiness and joy in the future, what am I going to be most happy doing, and what decisions do I need to make to ensure not only that I'm happy now, but I'm happy for the rest of my
Mm,
life? And that's being true and faithful to my
mm,
wife. That's providing for my son, giving my son a good example of not being lazy, of working, of having a good work ethic, of being loyal, like all of these virtuous things that I can do. And he talks about, and he goes in detail in the book, where I look at, okay, if I make this decision, for example, and I'm coming back to this one example because it's so easy, because it relates literally to what Tiger Woods did. Like Tiger Woods filled his life with women, secret meetups, drinking. Like he spent time away from his family, and in the end, like he was ended up being this horrible, miserable person. Now, granted, I hope he's happy
Mm-hmm.
now. I don't know. Like I haven't kept up with his life for the past 10 years, but in that moment, we know for a fact that he wasn't happy, and the decisions that he made led him down this path to where he definitely was not happy with his life. And in the moment, it feels like, oh, this is so exciting and this is so much fun to do. When in reality, sure, for a moment, a lot of fun, really enjoyable, like, wow, exciting. But then after it, like you feel this emptiness and you feel this
Mm-hmm.
hollowness. And in order for me to continue to be happy, and that momentary excitement is going to ruin my happiness for the rest of my life. And granted, I'm a man and I'm fallible, but I will never willingly choose something that can ruin the happiness for the rest of my
Right.
life. And like I've come to that decision myself. Like I will never pursue something to where I could cheat on my wife, or to where it could get me in big trouble with my profession. Like I'm not going to do something that's questionable. I was just talking to my friend yesterday about interpreters who have done some extremely questionable things, like buying tickets for a deaf person to go to a theater so that they would be hired and paid big money to interpret for that deaf person, but then the deaf person never shows up to the
Right.
theater because the interpreter bought the tickets for them to attend the entire
Mm-hmm.
season. So like that's shady on so many
Mm-hmm.
different levels. And sure, in the moment, that's a quick $1,000 that I can
Right.
make, right? I make $1,000 a show, like, oh, that's free money, and nobody's really
Mm-hmm.
hurt, right? But then going down that path will definitely affect my happiness and joy for the rest of
Right.
my life. So I'm not going to make those decisions in order to do it
And
that
when you're
way.
younger, yeah, when you're
And
younger, you don't realize
you don't
how
realize, yes,
how enslaving it is to give into your urges or to give into your impulse. I think the pain of regret is that one thing that destroys your peace and your stillness. When you do make those choices, you
yep,
regret it, and it's always going to live with you. And he gives Ron Holiday in this book gives the illustration that you can either be enslaved to your urges and impulses, or you can subscribe to something that's even more powerful, and it's called freedom. Freedom of knowing that you haven't made those choices to like darken your soul, or to, in Tiger Woods' case, literally destroy not just multi millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, but that one relationship that probably meant the most to him, but he couldn't see it in the moment. He in this example, he gives the illustration of when you get this impulse and it comes to you to sit with the impulse, examine it, and then let it pass like a bad smell. And it's just funny
yep.
because
I wrote
we're
crop dusting
it
right
was funny
next to
because we're on a
that.
hike yesterday and we were walking down the path, and we were with some friends, and we're walking down the path, and I sniffed the air, and I'm like, "Do you guys smell that?" And we thought it smelled like a skunk, but that smell, you walk 10 steps forward, that smell is completely gone. And that's literally how our urges and impulses are. We get that impulse to do something
Yep,
selfish, or whether it's seeking sex, money, power, fame. We all have, because we're humans, we all have those urges and those impulses. But if we just sit with it and we let it pass like a bad smell, this is how we develop the strength to say no, or in our cases, to become the best versions of ourselves. And that was a good chapter, just to kind of, how when we talked about wisdom takes work, how we can read or listen to or have conversations with the dead. In this case, that was a conversation with somebody who is still alive, and an illustration that we can learn from what the mistakes that he made, so that we can say no to those urges and impulses, and see that, like you said, freedom is on the other side if we choose not to darken our soul with those dark choices. Now that was powerful, man. That
Yeah.
was good. The third domain is the domain of the body. This was the section that really spoke to me because this is one that, well, first of all, he goes and he talks about you can't. He gave the illustration of Tiger Woods, how he might have had control over the domain of his mind, but maybe not his soul because of the decisions that he made, and how in order to
It's a
find
good point.
full stillness, we have to master or have the self mastery of having control of each of the domains of our body, the mind, and the soul. And the reason why this one spoke to me the most is because when I was coaching, I could never turn it off. I felt like I could never rest. And going back to a previous chapter, he talked about anger and how anger is one of those things that does not allow you to experience stillness. And because of the professional coaching for me caused me to have a lot of dread and anxiety. And after reading this section this week or the week before, I realized that the reason why I had such a hard time with coaching was because I could never turn off my brain. I could never rest. And in order to have a still soul, I have to be able to rest. And so he gave a lot of illustrations about Churchill, which I thought was kind of humorous. Like Churchill was very
Yeah.
sarcastic when somebody asked him, "What's the secret to your success in your life?" Churchill said something along the lines that never stand up when you can sit down, never sit down when you can lie down.
Never sit down when
And I
you can
wrote
lie
down in
down.
my book, I was like, he
Yeah.
has to be sarcastic here because, like, we know that Churchill was not one of those people who was going to sit down or lie down and be lazy. In fact, in the book, he kind of gave the outline of his routine, which is one of those ways that we can approach stillness. So the three things that from this section that really spoke out to me was in order for me to rest well, in order for me to seek this stillness of the soul, one was we got to take a walk, and we can go in a little bit deeper. I have some more thoughts about walking and why it's so powerful for you, but the other two was not only take a walk to induce this stillness or to force this stillness into you, but the other two was the routines that we have and seeking solitude. And to me, this was a revelation on a walk, actually, to know that these are three things that are within our control. Like we all can, we're all fighting the fight of trying to be happy, trying to be content, and if we're always tied to what other people think or the fear of other people's opinions through social media, I don't think we're ever going to find this stillness. But we're also not going to find this stillness if we're workaholics, if we can't sit on our deck like you can and smoke for 1 or 2 hours or 30 minutes a day. We're never going to find this stillness. And to me, that was very profound because if I'm going to be able to be the best version of myself, I have to be able to know how I can be still. And so for me, those three things were take a walk, have good routines, and find solitude or try to be in that, not necessarily solitude as far as being out alone in nature, because we can find solitude within ourselves. But those were the three things, and we can dive into those. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but those were the three things that really stuck out to me in this third section of the book.
I wrote down find hobbies for rest and to replenish us, develop a reliable, disciplined
Mm,
routine, spend time getting active outdoors, seek out solitude and perspective, learn to sit to do nothing, and then get enough sleep and rein in our
mm,
workaholism. And then lastly, commit to causes bigger than ourselves, which the last one, again, like it can be a religious thing where, for example, this small community that I have worked with that's kind of changed my attitude about the value of church and
mm,
community. But they banded together and they have a
mm,
food bank and they give out clothes to people who are in need. And like, it's more than just a fancy church to go and sit in and feel better about myself. Like, it's actually actively joining and doing something that's bigger than they are. And it's motivation. Again, for me, it all comes down to that motivation. What's motivating me to read more? What's motivating me to give to other people? And if that motivation is selfish, that's great. I'm still doing the right thing by giving of my money and my time to other people. Like, what motivations do I need to put in place in order to encourage stillness, in order to encourage happiness? But he did go into detail about being active outdoor, finding hobbies, things that you can rest and relax in. Something he did not talk about in the book is that Churchill was a massive
That's
cigar
right.
smoker.
Yeah.
There's an entire cigar that's
Yeah,
named
that's
after
right.
Churchill. The Churchill cigar. It's the size of
Hmm.
a cigar. I should have looked up the measurements, but I mean, it's the bigger, thinner cigar. It's like a double Robusto almost, but like, smoking cigars was literally something, a pastime that Churchill did in order to find stillness. He talked about painting, how Churchill was a
A
massive
bricklayer.
painter, how
He was a bricklayer.
he
Yeah.
was a bricklayer, how he wasn't any good at painting,
Or
how he
bricklaying.
sucked. You're but he did
Right.
it. And I think that comes back to the point, like, we don't even have to be
Right.
good at our hobbies or whatever it may, but finding something. For me, I think too, I think I told you last week when we talked that Jim Carrey made the quote that he wished that everybody could become rich and famous, so that when you do, you could see that that's not all
Hmm.
that there is. When you do, you can see that that does not
Right.
bring happiness. And that's something that I've been realizing more and more and more, is that if I'm going to be happy, I have to be happy with what I have
Hmm.
right now. I have to be happy with the house that I have, the car that I drive. Can't care about what other people think. What am I doing to enjoy my time? And it comes back to the soul, where being faithful to my wife, being supportive of my son, playing board games because that encourages us to spend time together as a family, going on walks, especially with my wife. I love going on walks because it encourages conversation between us. Again, it comes back to motivation. Like, if me and my wife are, I mean, we have good conversation regardless, but some of the best conversations that we have, where I work on me and I have a lot to work on, and we talk about things that are important to us, is when we go on walks. So what routines do we need to put in place in order to encourage good
Hmm.
habits? In order to, and if that's going to church on Sunday so you can be a better person, and that's motivation for you. If that's scheduling every Saturday and Sunday morning, which is our regular, me and Megan will go out and we'll take the dogs for a walk, and we'll walk typically 2 to 3 miles. And during that whole time, we'll talk about life and about this podcast. Sometimes, like, we'll bring up topics that me and you discuss, but putting those routines in place in order to ensure that I can be happy and experience stillness now. The things that I need to add: journaling. Like, I can't enough people have said that journaling is good
Hmm.
for you, that it would be, and I'm just going to admit right now, it's going to be something that I struggle with because
So
I've tried.
Epicurus, I have this written down. Epicurus said the wise will live by three priorities in life. The first one is leave written works behind. And that, I mean, I
Yep.
interpret that as journals, not necessarily writing a book and publishing it. And then the second one was be financially prudent and provide for the future. And then the third one was cherish country living. To me, that was, I mean, I know you say you struggle with journaling. I think it was the example of Anne Frank when he wrote, that was the first
Yeah.
section of the book, but she said, paper is a better listener than people, or paper is friendlier
Yes.
than people. You know, the whole act of journaling for me, I know we discussed this in a previous podcast, but when I write, I'm writing what I want the best version of myself to be. And it's not just things that I'm working on, but it's so reflective, and I'm writing about how I want to be 10 years from now. I'm not saying, hey, this is how I want to be 10 years from now, but it's marking how I want to improve in the areas that I know that I have to work on. And I challenge you, if I know if you really want to do it, you don't have to journal to be still or to be a better person, but it is a discipline that has more profitability than anything else I do on the daily. So going into the routine section, the routines, he talks about how routines can be timed based. So, for instance, this week I didn't mean to do this and I didn't want to do this, but I woke up before 4:30 every single morning this week, Monday through Friday, and I one morning I woke up at 3:45, and I was kind of happy about it when I woke up because I knew that I would have extra time to go down to the couch, make my coffee, go through my routine of taking my supplements, and then just I have an hour by myself without Soren there needing something. I know that sounds bad, but I can just write.
No,
And
no, understandable. Quiet, a moment of
right. And
with your
I think if
thoughts.
we can wake up that 1 hour early and have that time for ourselves, there's so much benefit that can come from that. He also talks about how routines can be focused on order and arrangement. And that can go from cleaning your house, making sure you got your clothes set out for the day. That can be your routine of making coffee, putting on your clothes, getting out the door so that you're not stressed out and rushed, so that you're not now you get angry or frustrated because you're not in the right routine. And it can be built routines can be built around a tool, sound, or scent. And I, when I don't know necessarily how that one would work, how I'm going to build my routine around a tool, sound, or a scent, but I'm a very routine type guy to the fact that we're trying to book out some vacations and some trips for the summer, and the routine of lifting weights, like Katie is making sure that I have access to a gym at least every other day because she knows that that is what makes me happy. So that's just a routine that you've built
That's
into
awesome.
life that helps you become the best version of yourself. And so I think routines are very important. And we're trying to teach Soren that routines are not constricting, but they actually give you freedom to do more things. And what routines do you have? Do you have routines in the morning that you wake up to and do?
So I don't remember where I read this, but this just came to mind. But Steve Jobs is one of the most brilliant minds that have ever lived. Like he's on par with Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein. And if you noticed at every single press conference or new announcement that they had, he always
That's
wore the
right. Yeah.
same outfit. And I read somewhere that the reason that that was the case because he said that's one less thing that I have to think about. And I want my brain to be productive that I don't want to consider, oh, what outfit do I need to wear today that's going to reach the tabloids? I mean, if he had worn, he probably could have worn designer clothing. He could have probably made money off making an announcement in some fancy designer shirt and been paid $1 million to announce the next generation of the iPhone in this super snazzy outfit, right? He
Mm-hmm.
didn't care about any of that because he wanted his mind to be focused on the things that needed to be done, not on the
Mm-hmm.
extraneous benefits. And we go back to CNN and we go back to the current state of events where so much focus, People Magazine, Us Weekly, whatever magazine, where it's focused on what's people wearing, like what's the new and most. When in reality, I've tried to do the same things because I wake up at the same time every morning, and this has been beneficial
Mm-hmm.
massively to my mental health, like massively benefit, where I just do the same thing, get up 5:45, 6 o'clock every morning. Around that time, I never set my alarm. I have not set my alarm in years, and the negative to that is, for instance, this week I have been working a lot this week, and we will have periods of time where, especially in interpreting, where I have the opportunity to make more money so that we can save for our future. It's not something that I do on the regular, but I had several nights where I had to work till midnight, and so I'd get
Whoa.
home at 1 o'clock, and I would have to my brain because it's on such a routine because it's such a schedule
Right.
wake up at 5:45 and I cannot go back to sleep. So, but I wake up at the same time. I get up, I take my shower the same way, I shave the same way, I brush my teeth the same way, I wear the same clothes. I literally, as long as I've not gone into, a
Hmm.
dirty environment, I literally will wear the same shirt 5 days in a row because, I put that shirt on, I go to wherever I'm going, I interpret for 2 hours, I come back home, I take the shirt off, I hang it back up. But that allows me to not have to worry about ironing, a new shirt every time. That doesn't affect my brain in the way to where I have to think, oh, what am I going to wear today? Well, I know I'm going to wear today because it's
Right.
the same thing that I wore yesterday. I just put it on. So having those rote things that I do over and over again in the same exact way. When I get in my car, I put a podcast on. Like I try to work out at the same time every day. Like all of those, that's massively beneficial to my brain because of my mental health. Because I found if I don't do routine and if I have too much going on, this week is a perfect example, then my mental health starts to decline and I start struggling with darker thoughts and things like that. So
Hmm.
that's how routine helps me because if I don't have to think and make many decisions and I know exactly what I'm going to do and I have a moment, for example, this week was hard because I didn't have as many moments to
Hmm.
sit outside and smoke a cigar because that allows me a chance to process the struggles that I've had. Like I see things like there's vicarious trauma whenever I interpret. Like I do a lot of medical interpreting, and I see things and I hear things. I mean, just in this past 6 months, I've interpreted for multiple people who've been told you have 6 months to live. Multiple people, and experiencing the grief with them because I know the deaf community. I've known these people for decades at this point, and then I have to be the one, essentially, like the doctor's telling them, but they're looking at me and I'm signing for them, and I'm telling them, you have 6 months to live. You could maybe postpone your death by a
Right.
month, 2 months, if you go through chemotherapy treatment for the next 4 months or 5 months, but that's going to make your life awful. Like you're going to have awful side effects, or you can just enjoy the last 6 months of your life and accept the fact that death is coming. And like I've had to interpret that multiple times, and then having the chance to get home and process that and have a regular routine of I get home and I sit outside and I smoke a cigar and I think about it and process it and then move on. Megan, she listens to her
Thank you,
podcast, and so
Megan.
she
That's
knows
four
there's
people
one.
now.
You're
She doesn't even listen.
oh, it's funny. There was one day, like she knows this has been an absolutely
Right.
crazy week, and there's one night in particular I came home and I was quiet. I didn't want to talk, and
Mm.
she knew it. She respects, my boundaries, and she took Eli to soccer practice, and I went outside, smoked my cigar. She came home 2 hours later, and I came back in just a
Yep.
completely
Hmm.
different person because I had that opportunity to process my day. And I find that if I don't go through those routines and I have those exceptionally busy weeks, then I'm not as positive. I'm not as still.
Hmm.
I'm not as happy. Granted, we make sacrifices
Right.
as needed. But I don't know if you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on
No, I
that,
do.
but coming
Yeah.
to the last thought of
Oh,
interpreting
okay.
for
Okay.
death, I
Go
want to
ahead.
talk about that
Right now,
last.
or
No, no, go
I
ahead. Did you
did
have any response to
because
that?
it was just funny how you said that you went out to the deck, you smoked your cigar, and you kind of. I'm going to tie this back into your mental health. To me, that is seeking solitude, and I think because of the amount of quote unquote connectedness that we have with the rest of the world. Well, and in your case, you're around the people that you work with, and you're interpreting for them, and you're carrying their burdens. They become your burdens, and the only way that
Mm-hmm.
you can get through those feelings is you have to be alone. So
Yep.
being alone and having that solitude is not just uh, going to the mountains and hiking in the mountains or being out in the field all by yourself.
Right.
Right.
And he
So
makes that
yeah, he
point.
says aloneness is not loneliness is not loneliness. So you can what I'm trying to say is, in the modern world, I feel like since the invention of the iPhone, we don't have that concept of finding the stillness because we're always reaching for our phones. And in your case, if you were to reach for your phone in those 2 hours and filled your mind with stuff that you're scrolling with, I don't think you would have been, when you came back inside, you wouldn't have become a different person. But you sought that solitude and you sought that aloneness, and that's what helped heal your your
Inner
mental health. It
emotions.
became more positive. Uh, to end with
Right.
this, Edward Gibbon said, he quoted this in the book: "If solitude is the school of genius, then the crowded, busy world is the purgatory for idiots." And you could put yourself in purgatory by continuing being around Megan and trying to force that, or maybe seeking refuge in your phone, but you solitude, and that's the genius of trying to seek solitude. And you, like you said, you came back a completely different person. I'm just trying to tie in what you're saying to the fact that in order for anybody who's listening for this to feel better about themselves, if you're feeling anxious, seek solitude. If you need to think deeper, seek
Yep.
silence. And I think that was the whole point of his
Yes.
the part of the book, or was this book was, in the modern world, we don't seek this aloneness or this solitude or this silence. Everything is so loud, not just because of our phones, but because we don't have a routine for seeking this stillness. And I would say that my mental health, if you want to call it mental health, but I feel better about myself in the last 2 years, giving up something that constantly created turmoil in my life, which was coaching. I get rid of that, and all of a sudden, I have found this happiness, this contentment, this stillness, because I'm not trying to be something that
Yep.
I think other people want me to be. So that's what was coming to my mind.
And in the moment, you couldn't be told that stopping
You had
coaching
to
would
figure
make
it
you
out by
happier.
stopping it. You had to make that decision.
Yes.
And again, going back to journals, I knew I could make that decision and that it was the right decision because I had recorded it for so many years. And that was enlightening. And so just to hear you say that and to know where your safe space is on the deck, smoking a cigar, that's what puts you, that's your routine. And for you to flip that switch, for you to seek that stillness. And if you don't know what that is, then I think you're angry, you're frustrated, you're always tense, always have that source of anxiety. And because I work with kids who have all these issues, and like we say it to other teachers, but I believe that the source of all the kids' anxiety is not being outside. For instance, Soren got in trouble. I told you yesterday, or we talked, I can't remember when we talked, but Soren got in big trouble last weekend. So he was grounded. And the grounding was he had to go outside because we knew that it was the fact that he wasn't outside.
Yep.
Man, he's had an amazing week because he's been outside riding his bike, playing with the neighbors, playing in the dirt. And that's another form of
Yep.
stillness that relates to a child. So sorry to cut you off, man. Go ahead and
No, 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 no. That was great. This series has been great because it solidified a lot of my thoughts on, starting with the obstacles of the way. Like, we don't have to punch the bully in the mouth sometimes. We can use that perceived obstacle as a jumping off point, or ego is the enemy, where just keeping my mouth shut. I worked with some people recently where I could have said things and I could have pointed out faults, but I kept my mouth shut. I ate the negative
right.
feedback, you know what I mean? And it ended up working out better than it would have if maybe I had in the past, confronted that individual, and then it's uncomfortable at that point. Well, they gave feedback that I didn't agree with. Well, I took it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Move forward. And the result was a much better result than if I had let my ego get in the way. And then finally, like, using routine, doing the things that I know, making the decisions that I know are going to make me happy, which is extolling the virtues in life. And the virtues are reading, being faithful to my wife, being loyal to my son, working hard. Like these are things that we've heard all our lives, but until you internalize them and we solidify them with moments of stillness and moments of silence, like the series has just been really good. He ends off talking about death, which kind of encompasses Stoicism, memento mori, which is like the Stoicist phrase, with death in mind, living with death in mind. And he closes out with two quotes that I want to read. One of them is from Cicero, who said that to study philosophy is to learn how to die. And not necessarily thinking about death all the time, but understanding that death's door is right there. I just found out this morning that somebody that I did CrossFit with years ago suddenly passed away recently. And he was 45 years old. He did CrossFit every day, so he was extremely healthy. Life is over for him. Like, we don't know when that's going to happen. But also understanding that death is not something that we need to be scared of. Like, we can make these good choices in life and enjoy life right now, not with fear of death in mind, but understanding that I need to take advantage of every moment that I have right now, understanding that death could happen tomorrow. And Seneca reminded himself that before we were born, we were still and at peace. We didn't even know that we didn't have life. Before we were born, we were like, where were we? We don't know. And so we will be once again after we die. A light loses nothing by being extinguished, he said. It just goes back to how it was before. And that just makes me think, like, after death, we're not going to know that we die. And whether or not we believe in religion and eternal life and life after death, the point is, this life and how we know it, like, it's just not going to be there. So why should we worry about some ending point and what's after death? Nobody knows. But why should I live my life trying to get as much money or as much fame or as many experiences as possible right now when I can just focus on the decisions and the choices that I know will make me happy? And even though it feels right to be egotistical and to lash out at those people who I feel are attacking me or attacking those obstacles, when I can just apply the principles and the virtues that are stoled in this book, which are find happiness in the moment, make the decisions that I know will continue to make my happiness, to not chase after momentary excitement or momentary pleasures that I know if I go down that path are only going to hurt the stillness that I have. Drinking alcohol is a perfect example. I've never been a big alcohol drinker, but in the past, I have turned to alcohol or drinking bourbon as a way to cover over my mental health issues, and especially like these past several months, I haven't drank at all because it will enter my mind. I'll think, man, my mind is busy and I have this thought, this dark thought or whatever. Well, I'm going to drink and I feel better after I drink. And it's one of those momentary pleasures you can pursue. And it's a minor momentary pleasure, right? So drinking alcohol isn't like cheating on your wife. Like, I'm not comparing the two things. But if I drink alcohol, I know that the next day and time after, because I didn't process that event like I should by taking time to myself and having those moments of silence, I just squashed it by drinking the alcohol. Well, then I'm going to have to deal with it later anyway. And it affects my happiness and stillness later anyway. So I've been like, I don't want to drink, And so literally these past several months, I just haven't. Granted, there's also the health benefits, like alcohol's horrible
Right.
for your body, but that beside the point. Living with death in mind, knowing that I need to make the most of every moment now, to focus on the decisions that I know will maintain my happiness. And the decision to do something that's unwise with my profession, the decision that would be unwise with my relationships. Like, I'm most happy when I'm with my wife and my son, when I'm talking on a podcast, when I'm reading good books. Like, I know these things make me happy, but I need the motivation and the routine to ensure that I'm going to abide by them and continue
And
to
this
do
is
them
why
over time.
stillness is the key, not to be like silly about it, but you go back to the 4 books we've read by Ryan Holiday, Wisdom Takes Work. In that book, he talks about the secret to a great life is reading. And so the last couple of weeks I've been writing. The secret to a great life is reading, reading, reading. But I think now after reading this book, the secret to a great life is stillness. And this is why stillness is the key. Out of the 3 books he just wrote, Obstacle is the Way kind of gives you examples, tangible examples of why obstacles are the path forward, and not seeking stillness or trying to seek stillness is that process of overcoming those obstacles. And then he gives this big book called Ego is the Enemy, and how that is probably the one thing that can get in the way of all stillness, that and anger, I think. And then he goes into this book and he finishes off these 3 books with stillness is the key. I think he's trying to paint the picture that if you think about what your obstacles are and what they can be in life, and you don't have the pride and the ego, you say no to the ego and the pride to get through those obstacles, then at the other side of that is stillness waiting for you. And that's the key. That's the secret to a great life, is seeking what you just said. That's what gives stillness. And I think that's when we're most content and when we're are most happy. So I think it's fitting that he ends this book trilogy with that thought in mind, as opposed to starting with stillness and then ending with ego, or ending with the obstacle is the way.
And I love the last portion that he wrote where Ryan Holiday is a multimillionaire now, right? He has the opportunity to speak to crowds of people. He's written multiple best-selling books, but yet he ends on the fact that he lives on a farm out in the country. He feeds his cows. He slips a carrot to some of his donkeys. He fixed men's offense that has grown weak and has fallen over. One of his neighbors' bulls has gotten into his yard or his pasture, and he's a little frustrated with that, but he's able to stop and to look and to see that even though he has the money to pay for farmhands to do all of that for him, he has more than enough money to do that. But taking the opportunity to build this routine in his life and then step back and just enjoy a day's hard work and the sweat of your labor, and then to go inside and to read. And he even wrote, I thought about this when you talk about reading, people who don't read have no advantage over those who cannot read. And we've made that point in the past. Reading, thinking, like, it's not just something that people said. And when I was younger, I would almost think, oh, people are just saying that because they don't want me to be happy or do these things that seem so exciting. When in reality, this is true happiness. Like stillness, making the right decisions, living a virtuous life, working hard, loving my wife, loving my son. That is the key to having a happy, successful, and still life. Like literally, stillness is the key. I love how he ended it. Love it. Next book that we're going to read is The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins.
2, 1. That's how she starts.
What was that
the book.
for?
That's what made her so. That made her so. That's what she got her. That got the ball rolling for her. So yeah, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll explain it.
You started it already?
I read the first chapter.
I'm looking forward to it. She is a much more in-your-face writer because I listened to the audiobook. It's been a couple months ago now, but I'm looking forward to reading it. Bought the book, have it ready. That's the next book we're going to read. You can find us on socials at Two Bros Lit, where we post stuff typically every 2 or 3 days. Unfortunately, there's lots of stuff about me posted recently, but there's going to be lots of stuff posted about Brent. Here.
But don't scroll social
But looking
media.
forward to
Don't
the
go
next
Two
book.
Bros Lit and scroll, because you're not seeking stillness when you're scrolling social media.
True.
But it's okay,
to take a moment
to
de-stress.
Nothing else.
Two Bros Lit is the only acceptable social. Even Ryan Holiday's social media pages. Don't follow him. You need to follow us. Just Two Bros Lit.
Thanks, Brian.
Until the next episode.